Hi, Todd Ortscheid here with GTL Real Estate. Wanting to let you know about a few new changes to the leases that will be going out starting in August. These are not changes to your existing leases. You know, your existing lease, of course, stays in effect until it expires. But when you sign a lease renewal, there will be a few new changes to that I wanted to go over, just so you know that there's a few different things you might want to keep in mind when you're renewing your lease and when you're making payments and that sort of thing. First is when it comes to lease renewals, we've had lots of problems with tenants sort of waiting too long to sign their renewals. So we usually send the renewal out about 5 to 6 weeks before your existing lease expires, because we want to get that signed right away, so we've got that taken care of. The landlord who we represent wants to have that taken care of quickly so that they've got some certainty over what's happening with the property. And obviously from our perspective, we want to get it done as quickly as possible so we're not scrambling right at the end of the lease to try to get all the paperwork and everything finished and everything put into the computer. So we want that done as early as possible. So in order to do that, we're going to start charging a fee for late signings of those renewals. So the way this is going to work is we'll send the renewal out no later than the 20th of the month prior to the month your current lease expires. So for example, if your lease expires in December, on December 31st, then we'll send the lease out to you for signature no later than November 20th. So we'll get that out to you by that point. So you've got about the same as what we do now, 5 to 6 weeks to get that signed. But the key there is to make sure you have that signed before that month is over. So we get it to you on the 20th. Before the end of that month, make sure you have that lease signed. Because if it gets to the next month, we'll start charging a fee, an admin fee, for waiting too long to sign that renewal. So if you sign it the 1st through the 15th of the month in which it expires. So like I said, if your lease expires December 31st, if you don't sign it before the end of November, but you sign it sometime between the 1st and 15th of December, then you'll get charged a $25 fee. So it's not much, but it is something to kind of encourage you to get that lease signed quickly. Now, if you wait until the very end, between the 16th and the end of the month, right up until the point where your existing lease expires, and there's a $100 fee for that. So you definitely want to get the lease signed before that comes up. And then if you let the lease lapse to month, then in addition to the month fee that there already is in most of our leases, there'll be a $250 fee if you want to sign a renewal after that, because we really do not want these leases going month to month. We want people on a current lease. So, we hope these fees, the vast majority of you sign your leases quickly anyway, it won't even affect you. But for those who need the extra time, we don't mind you having that extra time, but it does create a lot of extra work for us and a lot of extra heartache for the landlord who's worried about whether that lease is going to get signed. So there does need to be some compensation to us and the landlord for that. So that's how the lease renewal fees are going to work. We're also, as you know, we try to be a paperless company. We don't like sending out paper leases. We want everybody to be signing electronically. It just makes the process much more efficient. It doesn't require staff involvement to mail things. There's no postage. And it's just less wasteful. Sending out 30 pages of document to be signed is, pretty wasteful as far as paper goes. So we don't like to do that. So we're going to start charging a $25 paper lease fee if you request for us to send you a paper lease to sign, or if you don't give us your email, so that we have no choice but to send it out by paper. So make sure you have your email addresses updated with us. If you're watching this video, you probably do. But if there's someone else on your lease, if you're one person on there and you have a roommate, make sure they have their email on file with us, because if we don't have everybody's email address, we have to send it out by paper, and then there will be a fee for that. So you want to try to avoid that. On security deposits, we're going to be start offering, and this isn't part of the new lease, those provisions I just talked about are what's going in your lease renewals. The next things I'm talking about are things that are going to go in effect starting in September. So these will be not next month, but the following month. These changes will go into effect because these don't have to be put into your lease. But the first one of these is going to be how we handle security deposit refunds. So right now it usually takes about 10 days, sometimes 15, somewhere in that range for us to get the the security deposit refunds sent back to you after you move out of the property. And the reason for that is just we're so busy at the beginning of the month, handling the move-outs and everything else that we have to do right at the beginning of the month when rent's being collected, evictions are being filed. There's just a lot of work we have to do at the beginning of the month. So those security deposit refunds usually don't get done until a little bit later. And the state law gives us 30 days, so we have a lot of time to do that. So it's usually a little while before we can get those out. So some tenants have asked, can you please, I really need that money back as quickly as possible. Is there something you can do for me? And we don't want to just make exceptions here or there, picking and choosing who we do that for. So the way to do that is, again, with an expedited processing fee so that it discourages that, but the people who really need it, they're able to pay that fee and get that done. So what we're going to do is just going to be a $50 fee. If you want to get your security deposit back more quickly, there'll just be a place where you sign on your move-out inspection, or if you don't attend your move-out inspection, then you can request us to send you one for e-signature. It's basically just a form that says, I request that my security deposit be sent back to me no later than 10 days after I move out, and I'm willing to pay this $50 fee for that expedited processing. So, it'd just be a simple form you got to sign to get that done, just $50, and then we'll get that out to you no later than, within the first 10 days after you move out. Otherwise, like I said, it will be later in the month, most likely. Usually we won't get those out until later in the month. Like I said, sometimes usually between 10 to 15 days, but sometimes it can go longer. Sometimes it does take up to 30 days. So if the expedited processing is important to you, just keep that in mind and you can request that. The final change, and this is kind of a big one, we're trying to get every tenant to sign up for electronic payments on the tenant portal, or to use the rent money system, which is how you pay with cash at places like Walmart, Kmart, Kroger, and those sorts of locations. We want everybody doing that because that's all automatic. When you pay that way, it doesn't require our bookkeeping staff to manually enter those payments in the computer. They don't have to go to the bank to deposit money or checks. It's much more efficient for us, and it helps to keep us from having to add more fees onto you, to be honest with you, by keeping our costs down. So we want everybody to be using those methods of payment. We want you to be doing the electronic methods. So in order to encourage that and to discourage people from making paper payments, starting in September, there will start to be now a payment processing fee. So if you pay with a check, a paper check, not an e-check on the website, but an actual paper check or a money order, whether you mail it to the office or bring it into the office, there'll be a $10 paper payment processing fee for that. And that's just to cover the extra work that's involved with our staff in dealing with those paper payments. Right now, if a member of our staff has to take a bunch of money orders down to the bank, it takes about 3 hours for them to do that, just because of all the paperwork that's involved. If we're depositing more than $10,000, which we frequently are, just because of how many tenants we have, then there's all kinds of federal paperwork we're required to fill out because of the Patriot Act. So the government keeps really close eye on anybody who's depositing large sums of money. So, we want to make sure that we avoid having to do that. We want to do everything electronically. It just avoids all this extra work. So when we have to do that extra work, we go into the bank and it just takes one of our staff members out of the office for hours at a time every day. There needs to be, some sort of fee to account for that. So that's going to be the $10 paper payment processing fee. So those are the new fees. Like I said, the first few I discussed will be going in the new leases because those are things that actually have to be written into the lease. The other items do not have to be in the lease. Those are just policies we can put into place. So those policies will go into effect starting in September. So if you have any questions about any of this, you can send us an email at support@gtlrealestate.com. We'll be happy to answer any of your questions. Hopefully these sorts of things will keep the cost down so we don't have to start adding on more fees to everybody. And these ones will only apply to the people who use these extra services or don't get their leases signed in time. So we think this is the most fair to everybody. But again, if you have any questions, feel free to email us, and we'll talk to you later.